Opinions and ideas expressed in the following Moraine Valley Broadcast Channel recording are those of its creators and do not represent the views of Moraine Valley Community College.
Corey Brooks, Professor Utonium.
Alex Kenny, Buttercup.
Camille Walker, Bubbles.
Jackie Tadros, Blossom.
All right. Put your headphones on. All right, welcome back to another episode of Powerpuff Talk. I'm your host, Professor Utonium, and today we're going to be talking about obesity. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the discourse surrounding it. So, for all of you listeners out there, discourse is the art of communication about a topic and the way of organizing knowledge, and also the ideas surrounding that topic. So we're going to be looking at a few areas of discourse today. We're going to be looking at the academic portion of it, the political, popular, and also the food industry as well, too. So today I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. And so let's get this talk underway. So, Buttercup, would you like to start? What do you think of, or what comes to mind when you think of the word obesity?
Well, to start it off, I'd like to start by talking about what I did think of when I thought of obesity. When I thought of obesity, I thought of more of lazy and people who didn't want to better themselves through their body. But once I started to actually research and kind of get more of an insight on obesity and different types, I found that there's a lot more to it than that there actually is to what we call like the popular discourse, which is the public. So there's a lot more behind it than just what people say there is.
I also realized that obesity associated with heart disease, stroke, cancers, breast problems, and high blood pressure. So I found that kind of interesting.
Such as toxic food environment that is linked to your home, your work and school, and your neighborhood and stuff like that.
And toxic food environments do vary person to person, so it's not all the same towards everyone, and it just changes a person.
So do you guys think the movie Super Size Me increased the care for obesity in 1967?
I thought it really, it kind of brought it to a bigger sense of, whoa, where people didn't really think of McDonald's as people thought McDonald's, they thought fast food, they thought of like maybe an unhealthy choice, but they didn't think of an impact that it had, such as the Super Size Me, where you would actually, like, if they said, do you want to supersize, where that more portions would actually have a cause on the human body like that.
And like, even though the Super Size Me is out there and it shows that McDonald's is bad for people, the sales of McDonald's have not decreased, the customers have not decreased, like nothing has decreased, everything is still the same.
I mean, it's just they pointed out that the more portions can have a bad effect, and so then in reality, McDonald's saw that had a bad effect on their, like, it had a negative, what's the word? Actually, discourse, yeah, there you go. It had a negative discourse on what McDonald's was trying to sell, so that larger portion was then taken out, and now you can't get that option at any McDonald's. I don't think so.
Increase the portions, basically.
Yeah. Our next topic.
Next topic, Professor Utonium.
Yeah, right. You've been silent over here.
Come on now.
So now going towards popular discourse, we can start talking about the stigma.
The Stigma video, where it talked about where it had a bunch of overweight or obese people come in and talk about what their lives are on the stigma towards obesity, and they talk about how it's kind of like fat shaming, where they feel that they're not accepted due to their size. So there was one lady who was getting on a bus, and she saw the way a girl looked at her when she sat next to her, and she instantly felt uncomfortable, and just that look of that stigma made her feel uncomfortable and just not well.
Yeah, and I feel like when in that video, before that video, I feel like the victim didn't really think of how obese they were and how, like, what obesity is to them until they actually were talking in that video and sharing their personal experiences and what they went through. They started to feel like depressed and sad and started to realize what they actually went through.
Don't you think it's like a tough love thing?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, I mean, definitely towards, I think the popular discourse, people want to make it feel like they're tough love.
Yeah.
Because in Dear Fat People with, what was her name? Nicole Arbor, she talked about, I'm doing this because I love you, but she's doing it in a very hateful way, which is most of the popular discourse. People want to say, like, oh, we're only saying these negative things because we want you to stay around, we care about you, but it's kind of, I think it contradicts itself.
So in that aspect, do you think there are any good ways to stigmatize obesity at all?
There can be, but again, going back to the beginning, obesity is a negative word to people. It's not really positive, so to make it better.
In the comedy aspect, though, like people like Zach Galifianakis, or how about Melissa McCarthy? They are,
yeah, I feel like they just
more
make
overweight
it
people in these funny movies and everything like that, but they're not looked at in a negative connotation. So, what do you think about that, though?
I just feel like in a comedy aspect, if you make people laugh, they will start to like joke about it. But like in that video with all the people talking about their obese self, that's more negative. Like when they're like, what's the word? When they're so like deep into their thoughts in that video, they just feel sad, and not like how Melissa McCarthy, how she like jokes about everything.
Yeah, how they portrayed, I feel, is in a different aspect because they come off as funny because they're comedians. That's what they do. So them kind of fat-shaming themselves is them trying to make it into a joke, which is kind of trying to lighten the subject. Mm-hmm. But it also could lead to people but people making fun of them even more. Like they could just say, oh, I'm just joking around, when in all reality it's hurtful.
That really should cause them motivation, to be honest with you, other than feeling sorry for yourself. If they're like joking around, that should make them want to work out more or eat less portions.
Yeah, talking about the food industry too, I just want to bring up food labels on like anything in like Walmart, Target, wherever it is. Mm-hmm. I feel like the colorful packaging leads attraction, and packaging that says no sugar added, sugar free, they just want to, like, I feel like they make people think that they're eating healthier than the full fat, the full sugar. Yeah. But in reality, it's not any better than, it's just worse than the actual, like, full.
Yeah, and when all they want to do is just put a label on it, and if they put organic on it, it'll make it sound way better for you, when in all reality it could be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food industry, they pay their spokesman to keep, like, points set so that they don't go off of what they're paid to say. So they would try to focus on responsibility as a cause of a nation's unhealthy diet, raise fears that the government action spurs personal freedom, and they also criticize studies that hurt industry as junk science. So they're trying to say that the science behind people saying that the portion size and that obesity can be linked to McDonald's and fast food restaurants is just junk, and it's not actual science. And they also want to plant doubt when concerns are raised about the industry. So they want to lead you away from what they're actually doing.
That's true, because the larger of the cup size will help produce sales and products.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie Fed Up, what I saw while I was watching the Netflix Fed Up series is that a woman talks about how that the McDonald's is not selling to children, and they're not trying to get children to buy their food, but most of McDonald's is very cartoon friendly, very they do get children's attention, and they're trying to sell to children. But a woman in the movie Fed Up said, we're not trying to sell to children, we're just trying to, actually we have an expert of it, and this is what
they did 20 years before. When I hear this discussion, I hear marketing to children, which really you're saying advertising to children, and you're also saying it's all bad. And that's just not true. Ronald McDonald never sells to children. He informs and inspires through magic and fun.
What she said.
Yeah, I feel like a McDonald's is a very cartoon-friendly place with, like, the Happy Meals and how they put toys. All the kids want the toys, which leads to the Happy Meals being sold more, and the parents wanting to get that more because...
To also talk, like, they kind of incorporated the more being active into their even building structures. Like, they have playgrounds at McDonald's now, which it says that the more likely you're going to go there, you're going to buy the junk food and go on the playground, but then you're also going to buy more junk food.
Yeah, she didn't interpret it the right way, which gives the wrong view for people. So she doesn't know what she's talking about, yet she's putting herself out there.
I feel like she does know what she's talking about. She's just paid to
mess everything up.
Kind of veer or skew the image of McDonald's.
Speaking of paying out, that reminds me of Dr. Steven Blair. He was, him and a fellow person named Gregory Hand were also bought out by Pepsi to discredit the fact that Pepsi is not what's making PepsiCo, and the products and everything else surrounding them are not making people obese. It's, again, going back to the negative aspects of no physical activity. And they worked for...
The company provided them with like $4 million for their other projects, just for Dr. Blair and Gregory Hand to just bias experiment or testing, because it has this company come in, pay them $4 million to fund different projects, but they're also just having this small project to say, oh, it's not because of Pepsi's sugar, it's because kids are inactive, or it's because adults are inactive. And I mean, it's in a document that we read that relates the tobacco industry to the food industry nowadays, there was many tobacco industries that devoted their resources, such as money, to try to skew the opinion on whether cigarettes can give you lung cancer. And there was many statistics made by doctors and different organizations saying that lung cancer to smoking cigarettes, but they were also biased because they were getting paid by these big tobacco companies just to say that.
As far as talking about the sugar aspects of the food guidelines and everything like that, from the public health, there was a public health deal going on, and they're trying to reduce sugar intake by about 20% by the year 2020. And I think that's been going on for a while now. And the previous First Lady Obama, she's been trying to get the school nutrition better as well too, so that they can target the issue of childhood obesity as well.
And I think this is that brings up the topic of also, I read in an article where it talks about how that prisons nowadays have better nutrition plans than many schools. So I think that also leads to childhood obesity, that our care is going to prison inmates and not our actual children to public schools or anything of that nature.
All right, that seems to about be all the time that we have today. We had a very interesting topic about obesity and all the discourse surrounding it, with the different aspects of the academic portion, the food industry, and, their ideas about planting doubt and everything like that. But also, again, to thank my co-hosts, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, for a wonderful show, and we'll catch you guys next time.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.